So thank you very much. So thank you very much for the invitation to the new format, to the webinars. For sure, I remember many nice events in Bern with the seminars with in presence, but we have learned during the last 1.5 years that this is at the moment impossible. And I think the webinars are a certain replacement, but for sure we are looking forward to meet in person again. So the topic for today is NIBS for the treatment of depression. And I will focus mainly on transcranial magnetic stimulation because this is the tool or the method where we have most knowledge, most research has been done in this area. And I think TMS has been a valuable tool for the treatment of depression. So I think a very important replacement to our standard therapeutic methods like pharmaco and psychotherapy. So when we think about treatment interventions, for sure, the goal is to induce some changes in the brain. And here you see a very historic drawing of Cajal. And you see the different architecture of the cortex. We want to interfere with cortical activity. And we have different possibilities. One is well-known pharmacological activity. So we change the activity typically at the synapse. Another method is interfering with the electrical activity in the brain. So the brain is an electrochemical organ. So beside pharmacological interventions by chemical means, we can use electromagnetic interventions in order to interfere with electrical activities. And the third big part of interventions are exercise or activity. We know that the brain changes according to its use. So by doing specific exercises, we can induce changes in the brain. So here the focus will be on the intervention of electrical and magnetic stimulation in order to change electrical activity, as we can induce changes, and these should act therapeutically. So we have a large arsenal of different tools, and the electroconvulsive therapy is one of the oldest therapeutic interventions for depression. But we also have TMS, vagal nerve stimulation, magnetic seizure therapy, deep brain stimulation, TDCS, transcranial direct current stimulation, transcutaneous vagal nerve stimulations, and more are developed over the years. So the development of a new method is one thing. The next thing is to evaluate and to develop protocols for specific interventions. So here I will focus on TMS. And why do we use TMS? Why magnetic stimulation? So the reason is that we have a big challenge when we want to interfere with the electrical activity of the brain. And the challenge is how to get the electricity to the brain, because the brain is well protected by the skull. And in order to make some changes in the brain, we have to get the electricity through the skull. So this is not so easy because the skull is an isolator. And we use more or less a magnetic field in order to transport the electrical energy to the brain. So here you see a systematic drawing of magnetic stimulation. Here you have the coil. Within the coil, you have a very strong electric current, and the change of this electric current induces a magnetic field. So what you see here. And this magnetic field passes largely undistorted through the skull. And as soon as it hits the brain, it induces electrical activity in the brain. So we can induce neuronal depolarization in superficial brain areas. I think that's very important. So as soon as the magnetic field hits the brain, it's weakened and it induces this depolarization, but particularly in superficial area, not in deep brain areas, at least not directly there. So this is how the treatment looks like. So the patients are sitting in a chair, and this is a typical magnetic coil, one of the older ones, and this is positioned over the patient's head. And so with this magnetic coil, we can induce electrical stimulation in the brain.